Hey everyone, welcome back to Everyday English Pod. We've got a really fascinating set of business discussions we're going to be looking at today.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground.
It does. We're talking expanding into new markets globally, making sure our teams are working together well, even like down to the nuts and bolts of managing a budget. We really want to pull out those like light bulb moments from these conversations, the things that can help, really make some of these important business ideas click.
Absolutely, yeah. We want to give you those aha moments, those things that'll really kind of give you that edge in understanding how businesses operate and succeed.
All right, so first up, expanding market presence. One of the biggest takeaways right off the bat was to really break into these new markets, you need a communication strategy that's fresh, that really grabs the attention of people who might not know you yet.
You got to stand out, right?
Exactly.
And they talked about not just relying on one method, but thinking about this dual strategy, online and offline.
Well, that's interesting.
Using the reach of social media to build awareness, but also the power of those in-person connections. Global networking events, that face-to-face interaction.
Oh, yeah, you can reach so many people online, but that personal touch, that's huge.
Absolutely.
Another thing they talked about, and this makes so much sense to me, is making your content feel local. Like it's really speaking directly to the people in those specific audiences.
You got to meet them where they are. Sarah.
Exactly.
Because a message that works really well in one place might totally flop somewhere else. So they suggested, really invest in professional translations, having marketing materials that are actually designed specifically for those different regions.
Oh, that's smart. You can't just like swap in a few words and expect it to have the same impact.
Nope, not at all.
You need people who get it, who understand those nuances.
Yeah.
And speaking of people, there's a big emphasis on having staff who are well-trained, who can adapt to these new markets.
Yeah, you need people who are adaptable, who can think on their feet. And to do that, you got to give them good guidelines, clear feedback.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Set them up for success, right?
Right. They actually suggested, and I thought this was really interesting, having guidelines that specifically point out those cultural differences and how communication might be different in different places.
Well, that's interesting, like a cultural sensitivity guide almost.
Exactly. Because those seemingly small things can make or break your efforts.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about that first interaction either. They talked a lot about how important it is to follow up consistently, like making sure your clients feel supported. It sounds simple, but they were saying that's often what turns someone who's maybe on the fence into a loyal customer.
It's about building those relationships, nurturing them.
Exactly. Showing you care.
Yeah.
And speaking of caring, they suggested getting feedback after every interaction.
That's huge. Yeah. Like what went well, what could be better. You can use that to adjust your approach, avoid making the same mistake multiple times.
Definitely. And this kind of leads into another smart idea they had, testing your strategies in smaller markets before you go, full-scale global.
Yeah, like a pilot program, right?
Exactly.
See what sticks, what doesn't, before you put all your eggs in one basket. And if it works, well, then you can justify investing more, making bigger operational changes.
Yeah, you got the proofs, right?
Exactly. Proof of concept.
So once you know it works, they said, make sure it's used across all the relevant departments, like really integrated to boost efficiency and keep your brand consistent no matter where you are.
Consistency is key. To make sure everyone's on the same page, they talked about having regular strategy meetings with those regional managers, getting detailed progress reports. Like, you need that information flow, right?
Real-time updates. You got to be able to adjust on the fly if something unexpected happens.
Exactly. Got to be agile. They were even thinking ahead about potential language barriers, talking about having extra support from bilingual staff.
Oh, that's so smart, removing those obstacles right from the beginning.
Absolutely. They even talked about cross-cultural training programs to help teams really understand those different perspectives, build empathy.
That's awesome. That benefits everyone.
It does. And to help get this all off the ground, they suggested working with a consultant who specializes in, integrating multilingual workforces.
That expertise can be so valuable.
Absolutely. And of course, none of this happens without funding. So the plan is to figure out the budget for all of this at the next finance meeting.
Got to have the resources, right?
Exactly. And a big piece of this puzzle, they said, was having consistent support from leadership. Like, if the folks at the top are on board, it makes a huge difference.
Sets the tone, right? Like, this is important. We're all in this together.
Exactly. And the end goal, if everyone adopts these new ways of working, is to give the company a real edge in the global market.
Okay, so shifting gears a bit, let's talk about international branding. One observation was that, right now, their presence across different regions isn't really telling a unified story.
The messaging's all over the place,
Yes,
right?
yeah, exactly. So the big idea here is you need to make sure your core brand is consistent, but you also have to tailor your approach for those different local markets.
It's a balancing act.
It is. And they specifically suggested unifying the main branding elements, but carefully adapting key slogans, things like that.
Right. Like having those recognizable visuals, those catchy phrases, but making sure they actually make sense and resonate in those different cultures.
Right, so you don't accidentally offend anyone or just totally miss the mark.
Exactly. And they really stressed doing your research on those cultural preferences before you lock in those design concepts.
Oh, yeah, it's crucial.
They actually suggested bringing in local experts, people who really understand those markets.
Oh, smart. Tap into that on-the-ground knowledge.
Absolutely. That kind of in-depth market analysis is key. You got to have that data to avoid making assumptions about what customers want.
Right, because what works in one place might not work at all somewhere else.
Right. And to really connect with those local markets, they talked about, working with influencers who already have that trust and attention of the customers you're trying to reach.
Influencer marketing, yeah.
Yeah.
That can be really powerful. But like I said, you got to choose those partners carefully.
Carefully, yeah.
Yeah.
You want someone who genuinely connects with their audience, who shares your brand's values.
So you don't just jump on the bandwagon with anyone who's popular. You need someone who's a good fit.
Absolutely. And then to make sure those efforts are working, you got to consistently track how people are engaging with that content.
Like, are people clicking? Are they buying? You need to see that data.
Exactly. And they suggested, doing those pilot programs again. Test it out on a smaller scale first before you go all in.
Okay, so testing is a theme here, being strategic.
It is, absolutely. And in addition to those influencers, they also talked about using targeted social media ads to reach even more people.
So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach, right? You have the influencers building trust, and then you amplify that with those strategically placed ads.
Exactly. But they stress that each ad has to really highlight the specific features that will resonate with that local audience.
Okay, so again, tailoring it. You can't just use the same ad everywhere.
Yep. Got to customize it, adjust the language, the visuals, even the cultural references you're using.
Oh, I see. Make it feel authentically local.
Exactly. And even while you're doing all this, you got to make sure you're not diluting your core brand.
Right, so those quality checks are important.
Very important. They suggested starting small with test ads and then scaling up the ones that proved to be successful.
So testing, again, iterating, refining.
Exactly. And tracking those results closely, weekly updates on how those ads are performing, click-through rates, conversions.
You don't know what's working.
Absolutely. And to really sharpen that international branding strategy, they also emphasized analyzing what the competition is doing.
Keeping an eye on your rivals.
Always. Understanding their messaging, their approach, can show you where you can stand out, offer something different.
Right. Find your niche.
Exactly. And the plan was to work with the research team to put together detailed profiles of those key competitors.
So you know their strengths, their weaknesses.
Exactly. Then you can position your own brand more effectively. Highlight what makes you the better choice.
All right. So next up, team collaboration. It sounds like there were some opportunities to improve how the different teams within the company were working together, especially between sales and operations.
Yeah, breaking down those silos.
Exactly, getting everyone on the same page.
Right. They talked about having regular cross-departmental workshops to get people interacting, understanding each other's roles and challenges.
That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you just need to put faces to names,
Yeah.
humanize those other departments.
Absolutely. They even suggested temporarily rotating roles between departments.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so people can actually experience what their colleagues in those other areas do.
Walking a mile in each other's shoes.
Exactly. And to break down barriers even further, they talked about doing team-building activities, things like problem-solving exercises.
Oh, that's fun, getting people to work together in a more relaxed setting.
Right. It can boost morale, spark new relationships. And to support professional growth, they talked about mentorship programs, pairing junior staff with more experienced folks.
That's great. The junior folks get guidance, and the senior folks get to share their expertise. It's win-win.
Absolutely. And to see if these initiatives are actually working, they said, to track improvements in those collaboration metrics, maybe using anonymous surveys to get honest feedback.
So you can see what's working, what
Yeah.
needs tweaking.
Exactly. And to keep that positive momentum going, they talked about celebrating team achievements together.
Little recognition goes a long way.
It does. They suggested having quarterly awards to highlight outstanding teamwork and innovation, public praise, even symbolic reward.
Oh, that's nice. Makes
Yeah.
you feel appreciated.
Absolutely. But they also stress being fair when evaluating team efforts, using clear criteria, documentation, to prevent any bias.
Transparency is key.
Absolutely. To build those informal connections, they even suggested occasional social gatherings.
Oh, that's nice, getting to know your colleagues outside of work.
Exactly. Letting people connect in a more relaxed environment can help communication, resolve tensions.
Sometimes you just need to step away from the desks, right?
Definitely. And they talked about having a small budget for these events, planning them regularly, maybe working with the company's culture committee to make sure everyone feels
It
included.
shows that the company values those connections, right?
It does. And they stress that for all of this to really work, those initiatives need to be consistent.
Not just a one-time thing.
Right. It's about building a culture of collaboration over time.
It's a long-term commitment.
Exactly. They even talked about tracking those qualitative outcomes, like seeing if interdepartmental communication actually improves, making sure those resources are being invested wisely.
So you can course correct if needed.
Absolutely. And a final but very important point. They said that management at all levels needs to lead by example.
Walk the walk, right?
Exactly. If you want your employees to embrace collaboration, you got to show them how it's done.
Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely. And the plan was to put together a roadmap with clear action steps, timelines, who's accountable for what, then review it monthly, make adjustments as needed. The goal is to really transform the workplace culture, benefit productivity, and boost employee satisfaction.
Okay, so let's move on to something that I think everyone can relate to. Managing a budget. And it sounds like they had some unexpected costs recently that made them really take a hard look at their spending.
Yeah, sometimes those unexpected things pop up and you got to reevaluate.
Exactly, tighten the belt a bit.
Right. And they talked about really identifying those non-essential expenses, figuring out where they can reallocate those funds to areas that are more crucial.
Kind of like a financial spring cleaning.
Exactly, getting rid of the clutter.
I like that. They also mentioned doing a deep dive audit.
Yeah, really digging into the details to uncover those cost-saving opportunities that might be hidden.
Sometimes you don't realize where you can be more efficient until you really look closely.
Absolutely. And scrutinizing those daily operational processes, they said, can often reveal inefficiencies that are eating away at profits.
So finding those little leaks.
Well, exactly, because even small leaks can add up over time.
That's a good analogy. And to get a clear picture of where they could cut back, they asked each department to submit updated expense reports,
Yeah, and categorize everything as essential or optional.
putting the responsibility on each team to really think about their spending.
Right, empowering them to take ownership.
I like that. And they had a really practical suggestion. Consolidate purchases whenever possible.
Bulk buying, right.
Exactly. Leverage that volume to get discounts.
Absolutely. And they talked about negotiating better contracts with their suppliers, aiming for those long-term agreements that give you stable pricing.
It's all about building those relationships. Yeah. Mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. But to make sure they're getting the best deal, they stressed doing your research, checking out alternative suppliers, comparing terms.
Keeping your options open.
Exactly. You don't want to get stuck in a rut.
So when it comes to big investments, they said to revisit their capital expenditure plans.
Yeah, maybe delay those non-urgent ones.
Prioritizing the essentials.
Right. And reassessing project timelines. Maybe that can free up some funds.
Smart. You can always adjust those timelines if needed.
Absolutely. But they also expressed concern about maintaining their quality standards.
You don't want to cut corners where it matters.
Exactly. So they suggested targeting those cuts at redundant activities, things that aren't core to the operation.
Okay, so streamlining, but not sacrificing quality.
Precisely. To move things along quickly, they wanted a proposal outlining potential cost reductions within 2 weeks.
So they can make decisions promptly.
Right. And once the finance team gathered all the data, they'd present a final plan to the executive committee. And throughout this whole process, they emphasized transparency, communicating those budget changes clearly to everyone.
Keeping people in the loop.
Absolutely. Because when employees understand why those cuts are happening, they're more likely to stay motivated.
It makes them feel like they're part of the solution.
Exactly. And to help with this whole budget management thing, they suggested looking into cost control software.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, something that can streamline tracking, alert you if things start going off track. They said they'd prefer a system that integrates all the key functions like procurement, finance, project management.
So everything's connected.
Exactly. It might be an upfront investment, but the transparency and oversight it provides could save a lot of money down the line.
Makes sense.
They even talked about scheduling demos with different software vendors, maybe piloting a system in one department before rolling it out company-wide.
Okay, so a phased approach.
Right. Minimize disruption, refine the process, and of course they emphasized keeping everyone informed about the progress, fostering that cooperation.
Working together.
Absolutely. They believe that a successful budget reevaluation, doing this right, should stabilize their finances and position them for sustainable growth in the future.
Okay, so shifting gears again. Let's talk about something that can be a real headache. Project timelines. It sounds like they were having trouble meeting deadlines, with stakeholders wanting things faster than they were being delivered.
Speed and efficiency are essential, right?
Absolutely, but you don't want to sacrifice quality.
Exactly. Striking that balance. One of the suggestions was to reassign tasks among team members.
Making sure the right people are on the right jobs and no one's getting overloaded.
Absolutely. Preventing those bottlenecks. And to make things more flexible, more adaptable, they talked about using a more agile project management framework.
Oh, interesting. So being able to adjust quickly when things change.
Exactly. You got to be able to pivot. And to keep communication flowing, prevent duplicated efforts, they suggested daily stand-up meetings.
Get quick check-ins.
Yeah, quick updates, any roadblocks, keep everyone in the loop. And to make things even more transparent, they suggested using a task board.
So everyone can see what's going on.
Exactly. It's motivating, it keeps people accountable, and they talked about breaking down those big, overwhelming goals into smaller, manageable steps.
So you can celebrate those smaller wins along the way.
Exactly. Keep the momentum going.
Makes sense. To free up time for those more critical tasks, they suggested automating routine processes whenever possible.
Let technology handle those repetitive tasks. It can speed things up, reduce errors.
Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency.
Right. They even mention looking into a system that integrates scheduling, resource allocation, and performance tracking all in one place.
You get a holistic view of the project.
Exactly. And they talked about standardizing reporting formats.
Oh, yeah. So it's easier to track progress across different teams.
Exactly. Consistent formats save time, reduce confusion. They also emphasized cross-training personnel.
Well, that's smart. So if someone's out, others can step in.
Absolutely. It keeps things moving, and it helps with knowledge sharing.
To stay ahead of any problems, they said to track those key performance indicators, those KPIs.
Yeah, monitor them weekly, address any concerns right away. Early intervention is key.
And it reinforces that accountability, right?
It does. They even suggested offering incentives for meeting deadlines, like small bonuses or public recognition.
A little motivation, right?
Exactly. But they also cautioned against pushing the team too hard. Regular breaks are essential.
You don't want burnout.
Right. And they said communication is key. Be clear about deadlines, expectations.
Helps people manage their workloads effectively.
Exactly. And encourage people to flag any obstacles immediately.
So you can address them before they become major problems.
Absolutely. They said that once these new processes are in place, they should benefit future projects as well. And they stressed documenting those lessons learned.
Oh, yeah, that's so important. Learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. The overall goal was to get an action plan in place and start implementing these changes within the next quarter. They want to speed up those timelines without burning out the team.
Okay, next up, task prioritization. It sounds like they were getting bogged down with multiple urgent tasks all coming in at once.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming when everything feels important.
It can. So they talked about having a clear system for deciding what gets done first.
Right, figuring out the true priorities. They suggested classifying those tasks based on urgency and their impact on the business.
So you know what to focus on.
Exactly. Then allocate resources accordingly.
Makes sense. And they suggested those priority matrices, those visual tools that help you quickly see what's most important.
Yeah, those can be really helpful. And managers need to communicate any changes in timelines or priorities right away.
So no one's wasting effort on something that's no longer critical.
Absolutely. Clear communication is vital. And setting realistic deadlines.
Right. Don't set people up to fail.
Exactly. They also talked about regular check-in meetings to ensure that everyone's on track, focused on those top priorities.
Quick little progress checks.
Exactly. And to handle those truly urgent requests that pop up unexpectedly, they suggested having a dedicated point person.
So not everyone's getting bombarded.
Right. Centralize those requests, let others stay focused on their main projects.
Smart. And they reminded everyone to avoid multitasking.
Yeah, trying to do too many things at once actually makes you less productive.
So focus, focus, focus.
Exactly. They even suggested having dedicated blocks of time for those critical tasks, minimizing interruptions.
Oh, yeah, creating that focused work time.
Exactly. They talked about having a workload dashboard where everyone can see who's working on what.
Oh, that's cool. So you can see who's at capacity, maybe offer to help if someone's overloaded.
Right. It promotes teamwork and prevents duplication of effort.
Very efficient.
Exactly. And managers need to be aware of those workloads, proactively reassign tasks or adjust priorities if someone's getting burned out.
You got to take care of your people.
Absolutely. And they suggested having those clear daily or weekly goals.
So everyone knows what they're working toward.
Exactly. Then share those goals in team meetings. Everyone's on the same page.
And celebrate those achievements, right?
Absolutely. A little recognition goes a long way. And before rolling this out company-wide, they suggested piloting these methods in one department first.
Oh, testing it out.
Yeah, work at the kinks, get feedback, then expand it to other teams.
Makes sense. So with all of this, they're hoping to improve how they handle those shifting priorities without sacrificing quality or burning out their employees.
Exactly, finding that balance.
Now, let's talk about something crucial, market research.
Right.
It sounds like they're really aware of the need to stay on top of those evolving customer needs in what seems to be a rapidly changing industry.
Got to keep your finger on the pulse, right?
Exactly. Got to know what's going on.
Right. They talked about really ramping up their market research efforts, not just understanding their customers, but also keeping a close eye on the competition.
Because you always got to know what your rivals are up to.
Absolutely. They talked about subscribing to those industry reports, the ones with the in-depth analysis of consumer behavior.
So you can spot those trends.
Exactly. Those shifts in preferences, emerging demands.
It's all about staying ahead of the curve.
It is. They even suggested working with universities to get access to even more cutting-edge research.
Oh, wow. Tapping into those academic resources.
Yeah. And to make sure everyone's in the loop, they suggested having quarterly forums where industry experts can share updates, forecasts.
So everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. And they talked about using those real-time data analysis tools.
So you can spot those emerging patterns faster.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, anticipating those changes, not just reacting to them after the fact.
Stay ahead of the game.
Right. They even talked about hiring a trends analyst, someone dedicated to spotting those emerging markets and opportunities.
Oh, wow. A specialist.
Yeah. They also talked about strengthening those partnerships with their local distributors, the ones who really understand those regional preferences.
That makes sense. Having those boots on the ground.
Exactly. If you need to tweak your product for a specific market, those distributors can help you do it quickly.
Adapt, adapt, adapt.
Exactly. And before they make any big investments, they talked about having a streamlined process for testing those product prototypes.
So yeah, those small-scale trials can save a lot of headaches later on.
Absolutely. And they emphasize building in those feedback loops from the very beginning, getting input from those early adopters.
So you're developing a product that people actually want.
Exactly. And they need to have a flexible budget, to be able to jump on those promising trends.
You got to be able to move quickly.
Absolutely. They said they'd present those research findings to management monthly with recommendations for any strategic changes.
So leadership can make those informed decisions.
Exactly. And in today's digital world, they can't ignore social media, keeping an eye on what people are saying online.
Social listening, right?
Right. You can pick up on those early warning signs, address any concerns before they become big problems.
It's all about reputation management.
It is. And they talked about using sentiment analysis tools to really gauge how people are feeling about the brand.
Oh, that's interesting, quantifying it.
Right. They also wanted to loop in the PR team, manage that messaging, reassure everyone that the company is listening and responding.
Transparency in action.
Exactly. And the ultimate goal of all these efforts is to really refine their market research so they can stay ahead of the competition.
So they're always one step ahead.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on to client relationships. It sounds like they want to really step up their game, provide more personalized service, really take care of their clients.
Building those strong relationships, that loyalty.
Exactly. And they suggested a more structured feedback system.
Yeah, getting input from clients, identifying those pain points.
And then responding quickly, effectively.
Right. Show them you're listening, that you care about their experience. And they talked about offering tailored solutions, not just generic packages.
That makes a big difference.
It does. They also suggested assigning dedicated account managers.
Oh, that's nice. That personal touch.
Yeah, someone who really gets to know the client, their needs, their goals.
And to build on those relationships, they talked about having client appreciation events.
Yeah, those can be really effective. Smaller gatherings, networking, feedback sessions.
And you get to learn about new product development.
Exactly. And they talked about creating personalized newsletters.
Well, that's nice, keeping clients in the loop with relevant information.
Yeah. You're adding value, showing you're invested in their success. And for their premium clients, they wanted to offer real-time chat support.
Oh, wow. So immediate help if they need it.
Exactly. And they stressed the importance of training their customer-facing staff. Conflict resolution, active listening.
Those are essential skills.
Absolutely. And they said to analyze client histories, maybe you can anticipate those renewal periods or opportunities for expansion.
Being proactive.
Exactly. Showing them that you're thinking ahead, that you're invested in their growth.
Not just waiting for them to come to you.
Right. They also suggested having quarterly reviews, to discuss any contract updates or emerging needs.
So everything's clear and you can adapt to those changing requirements.
Exactly. And to reward those loyal clients, they talked about a tiered rewards program.
Oh, that's nice. Recognize and appreciate those long-term partnerships.
Absolutely. And they stressed being transparent about pricing and contract terms.
No surprises.
Right. Build that trust. And to figure out the best way to communicate with different client segments, they suggested gathering data on what works best.
Like, do they prefer phone calls, emails, virtual meetings?
Exactly. Cater to their preferences. And they talked about collaborating on joint marketing campaigns, highlighting those shared success stories.
Oh, that's smart, showing off those wins.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to measure the effectiveness of all these efforts, they're going to track those key metrics, like client retention rates.
Because ultimately, you want those clients to stick around.
That's the goal. Happy clients, loyal clients.
All right, now let's talk about something that's essential for any company that wants to stay ahead of the curve. Fostering innovation. It sounds like they're really focused on creating a culture where people feel comfortable sharing new ideas.
Yeah, they want to tap into that creativity, that out-of-the-box thinking.
So they talked about creating an open forum for brainstorming.
Yeah, a safe space where people can share those unconventional ideas without judgment.
Sometimes the craziest ideas lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
Absolutely. And they suggested those quarterly hackathons, dedicated innovation days.
Oh, I love that.
Give people time and resources to really dive into those problems, come up with creative solutions.
So it's not just about doing your regular work, it's about making space for creativity.
Exactly. And they emphasize that managers need to provide constructive feedback on all ideas, even the ones that might not be feasible.
Keeping that environment positive, encouraging.
Absolutely. And even if an idea doesn't work out, celebrate the lessons learned.
Failure is part of the process.
It is. You got to learn from those mistakes.
They also talked about creating an internal incubator program to support those really promising ideas.
Yeah, give those ideas a chance to flourish.
Yeah.
Maybe provide some funding, mentorship, a clear path to development.
So it's not just about having the idea, it's about giving it the support it needs to grow.
Exactly. And to evaluate those ideas, they want to create a cross-functional panel.
Get different perspectives.
Right. They also suggested those short-term mentorship pairings, connect those innovators with senior leaders.
So they can benefit from that experience.
Absolutely. And to keep those innovators motivated, they suggested small rewards for reaching those development milestones.
Little incentives can go a long way.
They do. And before they take an idea to external customers, they want to pilot it internally first.
Oh, that's smart. Get that feedback from your own team.
Exactly. And to make sure those ideas keep flowing, they want to have an innovation portal.
So anyone can submit their ideas anytime.
Exactly. Tap into that collective intelligence. And to inspire others, they talked about sharing those internal success stories, highlighting those individuals who took risks and made a difference.
Celebrate those wins.
Absolutely. And to get people thinking differently, they suggested rotating people through different departments.
Oh, that's a cool idea. Get them out of their comfort zone.
Exactly. You never know what kind of cross-pollination of ideas will happen.
And they said to formally recognize that innovative spirit during performance reviews.
Yeah, show people that it's valued.
They even talked about inviting external experts to share their insights.
Oh yeah, getting that outside perspective can be really valuable.
And finally, they proposed an annual innovation summit to showcase those creative projects and set those ambitious goals.
It's about building that culture of innovation, that constant desire to improve.
So it becomes part of the company's DNA.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears one more time and talk about internal communication. It sounds like there were some issues with information not getting to the right people at the right time.
Communication breakdowns can cause all sorts of problems.
They really can.
Yeah.
So to address this, they want to streamline those messaging channels.
Yeah, cut down on that.